Welcome to the Golf Report podcast. I'm joined by Lauren Kim, sophomore at the University of Texas on the women's golf team. Lauren's coming off a individual victory at a home tournament last week at the Betsy Rawls, and then just finished up playing at Colonial Country Club, the Charles Schwab Women's Championship yesterday, and then she's going to be playing in Anwa next week. So we'll talk about those topics and growing up in Canada and playing golf. But first off, Lauren, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, just tell me about, you finished T6 just playing at Colonial Country Club. Just tell me about, how did you feel like, your tournament went this week and what was it like getting to play at Colonial Country Club, a professional, PJ course.
hmm Yeah, well, I played pretty solid. I've been coming off like a good stretch of tournaments where I placed top 10 multiple times and I got a win, like you mentioned. And it was just really cool getting to play at Colonial just because of all the history and all the people that played there before. And so I think just walking those grounds, very similar to like other courses like Augusta, for instance, is just very special.
Yeah,
And we got treated very well there as well. So.
yeah. So you played pretty solid, you shot two under overall, 70, 69, 69. Just, what was working for you this past week? And then, is there anything you think you need to work on? Because obviously next week Anwal is pretty, pretty big, week for you probably. Is there anything you think that you'll take from this past week at Colonial to, that you think you need to work on before going to Augusta?
Yeah, well, my ball striking was pretty good this week. I think I managed the course very well and I made sure to put the ball in the right places if I ever did miss the green. So that went well. And I think something that we can always work on, just golfers in general, is our short game and our putting. Um, it's not that it wasn't the best for me this week. It was still pretty good. I just think that I can clean up a few things and
Yeah,
make some putts and some shorter putts and make more birds out there. So I think heading into Augusta, that's something that I definitely want to just clean up a little bit. But other than that, the game's feeling great.
yeah. So, I want to talk about you just played, Colonial Country Club. It's obviously a PGA Tour tournament. They're gonna,
Mhm.
they host in May, I believe it is. But two questions, one, you get to play, some special courses, like Colonial, and then you're gonna play Augusta next week. Is it a little bit different, when you get to play these, bigger time, courses like Colonial and Augusta, and then specifically for Colonial, they always talk about it, being a very tight, narrow course. Did you experience that? Was it, very um, you know, off the tee, was it very, narrow and tight? That's what I always hear about Colonial, watching it on TV. Was that your experience? Or,
A
how
little
do you feel
bit.
like it was, playing Colonial?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I honestly didn't know much about Colonial before heading there. I
Okay.
just knew like, oh yeah, the Charles Schwab just like held there.
Hmm.
And it's like a very historic course, but
Yeah.
there were definitely a few holes that I was just like, holy crap, this is really narrow. Even for us, even though we played the tees up compared to the men's, obviously, it's still narrow for us on a few tee shots especially. So um I can totally attest to that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Then we'll talk about, your home tournament, the Betsy Rolls. Your team won, I believe it was by 18 strokes, and you got the individual victory. Just, tell me about that. First off, what was it like to, have a home tournament, and, get to play at your, your home course? Because oftentimes, you're traveling. I know your team played at, Hilton Head, which we'll talk about. You played in, California, I believe, at Palos Verdes. So, oftentimes in college golf, you're traveling around the country, playing different states and, having to fly on planes and, sleep in hotels or things like that. But what is it like, when you just get to play, at your home course, home tournament, and, get to stay, in home, probably in your bed, and not have to travel around like you usually do for tournaments?
We actually stayed at a hotel for this event just
Oh,
because
you did.
our coach was like
Okay.
trying to simulate what it's actually like at a tournament so that
Okay,
we
that's
don't
interesting.
be out of comfort.
Okay.
As nice as it is to be sleeping in my own bed, I do agree with her on that end, like having routine of, going to the hotel, showering, having team meetings and doing things like that. I think that was very smart of us to do. And I know a bunch of the girls kind of actually appreciated that. I
Yeah.
know one of the girls on our team, I think she actually brought her clubs with her from the golf course and brought them back to the hotel just because like we're so used to doing that at tournaments, not
Yeah.
at home.
Hmm.
Um, but no, it was really nice. I mean,
Hmm.
being here kind of just in the comfort of our academy and our own course. I think it was really nice for everyone. And then to play in front of members and like family and friends, I think that's what made it more special. And then on
Yeah.
top of that,
Mhm.
getting that team win, which was always amazing. And then getting my second individual win was really incredible.
Yeah. Um, so obviously, UT Golf Club, I wanted to ask about that. First off, what's it like for you to have, your own home course, at college? And can you just tell me a little about UT Golf Club? Like, it's one of the best golf courses. I don't mean to, brag, but here in Connecticut, we have the Yale Golf Course, which is the number one college golf course. But anyway, UT Golf Course is known to be one of the top college golf courses. So just tell me what's it like to, have your own course and facilities, and then just tell me a little about, your college home course.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I chose Texas is because of their facilities here. And although people do say like, oh, it's such a far drive from campus, it's only 30 minutes, which isn't terrible, but you know, it's worth the drive. Like once you're out there, you get to practice all day long, and we have new short game facilities, and I think um that's something that, everyone wants to work on is their short game, right? Like ball striking is good. That's something good to work on, but like your short game, that needs to be your bread and butter. And so for me, that's probably one of the things I like to practice the most is my short game and my putting. And so for us to have those facilities out there for us, it's really nice. And so,
Yeah.
um,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then our course, so I really enjoy it. It's fun.
Yeah.
Um, it's also challenging, especially when the wind picks up. And like for us to be good players, I think, and practicing out in this wind, it'll really be an advantage for us in tournaments when it does get windy. So,
Yeah. And two more questions I want to talk about your home tournament, and then we'll get into some other topics. But
yeah.
at your home tournament, you obviously picked up the individual victory by one. But I
Mhm.
noticed that you shot round three was your best round. You shot one under. So tell me about that. What was working for you, and just what was it like to get the win and shoot one under. Have your best round, and then second off, your team obviously won by 18 strokes. And you were playing some very good teams. You played LSU, Arkansas, some other team who are really good. So you did get an 18-stroke victory, but it was over some very good competition. So just tell me more importantly, talk about your individual victory and then talk about, what it was like for your team to get an 18-stroke victory. And do you think that the course knowledge and being your home course, do you think that helped your team, get the victory last week?
Yeah. Well, that one under park just it kind of came out of nowhere, to be honest. It was so windy that day. I think the gusts were like literally 35 miles per hour. So it was insane. I know everyone was struggling and like dreading to go out and play just because it was going to be a long one. Um,
Mhm.
but I really focused on like what was right in front of me, just the shot that I was about to hit in the wind at the moment and like everything. And I didn't think too much about the big picture, which is really easy to do. Um, but I thought I did very well, just trying to manage my mental state, and just stay in the moment. And so I think that's how I just ended up shooting one under par. Just kept taking my pars and sneaking in a few birdies here and there. But I think I had like what 16 or 15 pars, like a bogey and two birdies, I think that day. And so like it just kind of it was a really stable round, a lot of up
Yeah,
and downs and tapping pars, but like everyone was just happy with the par that day just because the conditions were so tough.
yeah.
Um, so I I guess that's what happened for my one under par round. And then as for the team win, I think yeah, it definitely helped that we had a bit of like knowledge on our own home course because UT Golf Club does have a lot of weird quirks, I'd say.
Okay.
That it definitely takes a few times for you to play to understand like oh yeah, there's like this weird thing on this green or whatever. But I think that's
Hmm.
I cover most of your questions there.
Yeah. So next I wanted to talk about, Hilton Head, Darius Rucker, and more specifically, I wanted to talk about, obviously this tournament was on, it was on the Golf Channel. I was watching. You've been on the Golf Channel and hopefully a couple more times this year. At the NB3 match play, Darius Rucker, and then, hopefully if you, make the cut at Augusta National, Women's Amateur next week, then you'll be on, hopefully the Golf Channel if you're playing well. Next week, then hopefully National Championship if your team gets there. But more specifically, my point with this is I want to talk about I saw you doing interviews with Amelia from, the Golf Channel. You played, finished T3, but getting to be on the Golf Channel, just the exposure for, college golf. That's why I do this, to hopefully promote, college golf. What does it mean, you think for like the Golf Channel to, be out there and cover your tournaments and, just for the exposure of getting to be on the Golf Channel and, that, because oftentimes, you just go out there, like I've been to tournaments and there's not a ton of exposure or a ton of fans, but when you do get the exposure, you do get, the opportunity to be on, like the Golf Channel and, have more exposure from people, what do you think that means just for golf, for college golf, just in general?
Mhm. It's definitely a big thing, I think, especially because they're not just covering like
Yeah,
men's college golf, they're also covering women. Um, and so, my hope is that people can watch and see that, we're the next big thing. We're coming up. We're going to be the ones on tour soon in the next, like, within the next 10 years,
yeah,
and be the ones that are winning out on tour. And so I think it's great for that audience as well, but also like the younger golfers who want to get into golf and like their dream or one of their goals is to play for like a Div 1 school or just college. And so I think it's a big thing and it's a big step that, Golf Channel is coming out and they're um broadcasting like all three of our rounds.
yeah,
I think it's a huge step and it's a great thing. It's also fun for us just because, we get to feel like we're on tour or, we have a little bit of spotlight on us and when you're playing well, cameras are going to be on you and that's always like it gives you a little pep in your step.
yeah. I just asked that because I hope there's more exposure for college golf because I'll just give some examples of last few years college tournaments I've
Mhm.
been at, whether it be like men's or women's tournaments, Hampton's Intercollegiate men's tournament, or some women's tournaments, UCF or Northwestern's tournament in Chicago that I've been to.
Mhm.
It's not oftentimes, I'm one of the only people out there, there's not as, the crowd out there. So I do, like when, I wish it could happen more, but when, there's more exposure in terms of fans and, the golf channels out there and things like that, I think that's always a, great step. And, there always needs to be more done, but I think, that's a good first step in, hopefully promoting and growing, college golf because, you know, hopefully like yourself and others out there, they'll, be
Right,
playing
sure.
like on professionally,
Yeah.
Epson Tour and hopefully LPGA Tour someday. So the exposure is always great.
Mhm.
Um, the next I wanted to talk about, Darius Rucker specifically. He finished T3, but I noticed that, and I was talking to Morgan Smith from Georgia about this a few weeks ago after the tournament. You guys had you had, some weather there. You had to deal with, some delays. So just how was that? And how was it? I believe it's on Wednesday. You had, a big delay on Wednesday. So just talk about that and talk about, dealing with the delay at the Darius Rucker.
Yeah, so that delay was actually crazy. We were playing, I remember, I think we were like one of the first groups to go off for like that wave on the front nine. And when I started, same thing, the winds were insane. Um, I think our flags on the green were like bending backwards. It was crazy. But I think up until like my sixth hole, it wasn't raining. And then all of a sudden we get like even stronger winds and rain is just coming down sideways. And now these
Okay.
raindrops are like really, really thick. Like I'm just getting drenched as I'm just standing there. Thankfully I had my umbrella, put it up, but they never blew the horn until I guess puddles started forming on the green and there was casual water everywhere. And luckily I was on the ninth hole and I was on the green and I had like a 6 footer for birdie, I think. And I was just waiting there under my umbrella with my coach. And it's funny, one of the girls I was playing with, she missed the green. She was like on the right side, had like an easy chip, but like was on the bottom of like a hill. So all the water would like kind of funnel down towards her ball. So we were standing there for like 10 seconds and all of a sudden, like at this point, it's pouring. And like you could see puddles forming on the green.
Okay.
And she was like, guys, my ball's now in casual water. And so her ball was literally like submerged in water. And so then all the coaches in the coaches group chat, my coach showed me like the chats and everyone was going crazy and they were like, "Hey, we can't play in this. Like y'all need to blow the horn." Um
Yeah.
that's kind of just sums up how it went. That was the first
Mm.
delay. And then we had like I think one more delay, I think like an hour later
Okay.
because there were like thunderstorms in the area. So it was just like a really chaotic day. It was really long. I think it was like probably 7 hours on the golf course just because we were, going to shelters, getting out of shelters, waiting for the horn to blow. And then on top of that, there were delays on like other holes just because I think people started playing a little slower just because of cameras and stuff. But yeah, that it was a really chaotic round. It was long, but we ended up surviving and I ended up playing pretty good. So
Yeah. So you're from Canada. We'll get into that more specifically throughout this interview, but I just want to talk about some. We've been talking about the delays and bad weather you had at the Darius Rucker and Hilton Head. But you're from Canada. I'm sure you've dealt with different types of weather. Playing golf and growing up in Canada.
yeah.
Do you navigate playing bad weather, whether it's raining or windy or just any type of weather? Do you kind of deal with that and navigate that pretty well being from Canada? Are there any experiences of that just come to your head though, playing in very bad weather, growing up in Canada?
Yeah. Well, I think my mindset when it comes to like playing in rain
Mhm.
is different than others. Like other people just don't enjoy it. They just dread it. They're like, "Oh my gosh, it's gonna rain." But I'm more
Yeah.
just like, "Okay, well, it's raining. That's fine. I got my umbrella." I feel
Mhm.
like I'm just more used to it. And where I grew up in Vancouver, it doesn't snow that much. It actually rains a lot. And it's just cold. So just cold and raining. And that's basically what I just practiced in all the time. And I think for when that weather approaches us and we actually have to play through it, I tend to play pretty decent. And I'm not sure if it's because like I actually practiced in that a lot or if I just end up playing fine. Um, but I think after coming to Texas especially, I learned to play better in the wind as well.
Yeah.
Um, so that's what I can say about that.
Yeah. We'll get into growing up in Canada, but I want to go back to Anwa. Just talk about, you're going to be playing that next week. Just what does it, mean for not only, women's amateur golf, but just like amateur golf in general that, you guys get to, play. Obviously, the first two rounds are at Champions Retreat, and then if you get to make the cut, then you'll go to Augusta National, but you get a practice round in anyway. And I believe, I've seen this, correct me if I'm wrong, but you also get like they host dinners at Augusta National, and you do get to go there even before the tournament, even if you're not, playing golf. So just generally just talk about, just what's it like playing this tournament, just what does it mean for, amateur golf just in general that, you guys get to play a tournament, at Augusta National right before the Masters.
Mhm. Yeah. When this tournament first came out, it was something that
Yeah.
I think every little girl
Mhm.
dreamt of is playing at Augusta,
Yeah.
just because the men only played there for the Masters, and it's such a historic place to be.
Mhm.
Walk the grounds of Augusta National. And so for me right now to be playing in this event for the second time, it's just it's quite magical when you think about it, in my
Yeah.
shoes. But yeah, it's just every moment in that tournament, whether it's, good or bad, it's kind of just like I don't know how to explain it. It's like you're making history. It's like
Yeah.
history in the making. And so for me to go there and represent Canada and also Texas,
Mhm.
I think it's a big accomplishment and it's
Yeah.
an honor. So,
Yeah. I had two more questions prepared for Anwar. I noticed last year you made the cut, so you did, play the competitive round on Saturday at Augusta National. Is there anything you learned about the experience, both playing at Champions Retreat and Augusta National, where my question is, last year, what did you learn, about, playing at Augusta National and Champions Retreat that, you know, you think will help you, this year?
yeah, well, one thing I learned about playing at Augusta is that, I did shoot under par.
Mhm.
And so now I know I can do it again. And it was
Yeah.
in a competitive round and I can do that again this year. Hopefully being in contention, one of like the last few groups.
Mhm.
And, you know, the weather last year wasn't the best.
Okay.
It was fine the first round. I remember it was like pretty warm. Then the second round it got pretty windy and cold, especially in the afternoon. And so um golf is a lot of competitive golf is a lot of like luck of the draw,
Yeah.
especially when you're playing in like big
Mhm.
fields, right? And so that's something that was like a big kind of reality check back last year, just was like, you know, thinking about playing in the morning where the weather's good or playing in the afternoon where the weather's like, colder and windier,
Yeah.
which is kind of what I played in. Um, and so that's something that I learned from last year that like that's pretty big. So sometimes like you'll just get knocked out just because of the weather and the conditions, which is unfortunate. But I think this year the weather's looking pretty good, and so hopefully we won't have to deal with a lot of that. But
Yeah.
I just know that Champions Retreat, it plays really hard. And
Yeah.
it's honestly, if you think about it, I think it's harder to play Champions Retreat than Augusta. But there's also more pressure when you play Champions Retreat because you're like, oh my gosh, like I have to make the cut, like I have to play well. Um, Whereas at Augusta, you're kind of just like, all right, I finally made it. I'm here. Like now I can just play golf without a lot of stress.
Yeah.
Um, so I think taking that from last year, all I need to do is just play golf. Like
Yeah.
not think about making the cut.
Yeah. Well, talking about making the cut, I was listening to some interviews, I believe it was like Amanda Sonnenbach and Megan
Mhm.
Schofield, maybe some of the other players. And, the fact that there is a cut, some players make it, to the competitive round at Augusta National, and some players, unfortunately don't make the cut, but everyone gets a competitive round. They were talking about how, it can be awkward, you play a practice round, I believe it's on Friday at Augusta National, and, you're playing practice round, some players are going to be making the cut and, playing on Saturday in the competitive round. And then some
Mhm.
players aren't. Have you had that experience? Like last year, did you play the practice round with, some other players who, didn't make the cut? And if so, was that awkward? That's just something that I heard them say.
Yeah. Honestly, for me, it wasn't really too awkward. I kind of just enjoyed that round
Yeah.
as like a fun, casual, enjoy my day type of
Mhm.
round. But I did play with a friend who didn't make the cut.
Okay.
So I don't know what they felt like, but I'm sure it would have hurt them a lot that they were just playing
Yeah.
that practice round and couldn't play the next day. But
Mhm.
I didn't find it awkward. I thought it was more fun because I
Okay.
just got to spend time with my friend, and
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of, practice rounds, Farah and Cindy, your teammates at Texas, are also going to be at Anwell. Are you guys going to travel there together and stay there like in housing together and play practice rounds, or do you think you'll play practice rounds with, some other players?
Yeah, I think we're flying there together. I think
Okay.
Farah and I are on the same flight, so I assume that Cindy's also flying
Mm.
with us there and back. Um, as of like housing and stuff, we're staying at a hotel, like a big
Okay.
hotel resort. Everyone is staying there, and so I'll see them at like dinner and breakfast and lunch. But for practice rounds, I know Farah and I registered to play together, and Cindy tried to get in our tea time, but her website wouldn't load, and then she ended up missing like that one slot that was available, and so I
Oh,
think she's
geez.
playing in like a tea time behind us.
Okay. Website
But
won't
yeah,
load. Yeah.
we'll practice together. We'll see each other.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I was playing at Augusta National, I'd be refreshing the page, but I guess all the time. But yeah.
I
Uh,
know.
last thing about Anwa, Augusta National, they always talk about, the Masters and just in general, it's a very hilly course, the greens are, very difficult. Are those two things true? And if so, um, has your, what your, has your experience, will that help you this year, navigating the greens, at Augusta National?
Yeah. I can attest that it is hilly. It is
Okay.
definitely more hillier in person.
Yeah, Tiger
than
Woods
on
says it's
TV.
like one of the hilliest courses of the year or something like
Yeah.
that.
hmm I'd never realized it until like after I finished playing and my legs were like dead. I was like, why are my legs like this? And I didn't I don't think I took in how hilly it was just because I was like in awe that I was at Augusta.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, what was the second part of your question? The greens?
Yeah. I just heard, watching the Masters and, just generally about Augusta that the greens are, pretty difficult. So, your
Mm-hmm.
experience, given that you played last year, in the ad walk, do you think your experience will help you, navigate the greens?
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. Experience always helps. And
mhm.
I know that Augusta does change their greens like every year, like they make small changes and modifications. So it's never the same. Um, but having played it, it'll definitely help.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So now I want to talk about just generally the spring season of college golf. It's been, just for everyone, and, it's, spring season college golf. It's very, jam-packed and busy, February through May, you have lots of tournaments like, you went, um, last week you had, your home tournament, then you just came off of Colonial, and then next week you have, ANWA, and then you get into the postseason, conference championship regionals, and then hopefully national championship. But
Mhm.
just generally, you have golf, and then you also have school. Just, how is it navigating, the busy, spring season, navigating both golf and, school?
Yeah. It's been a roller coaster. I feel
Yeah,
like I've been pretty good this semester on keeping track with like
mhm,
assignments and
yeah,
projects, and I right now I'm in like a negotiation class, and so I guess case days in which I go in and negotiate. Um, it's been not bad. Last semester, I remember it was pretty bad. I had like calculus, accounting, and this other business operations management class going on at the same time. And so
okay,
that was like a heavy workload, but this semester is much better. Definitely more on top of my work. And so I I don't know. I think just depends on like your mental well-being, I guess, on
yeah,
how well you manage everything. But
hmm
I've been doing not too bad so far. We're
yeah.
almost done. I think we have like 6 more weeks left.
You only have 6 more weeks left of school.
Yeah, I think something like that. It's
Okay,
going by
seems
really
like
quick. It's
okay,
going by so fast, and it's making me feel very old because I'm realizing that, my second year of college is like coming to an end. Um, but no, it's been fine. It's been good.
okay. Yeah, 6 weeks. That seems like it might be just before a national championship. So hopefully,
Hmm.
if you make it there, at least then you don't have the pressure of school. It seems like you'll be done before then.
Hmm. Yeah.
Then did you say you're studying management? Is that correct?
Yes, I'm studying business management. Hmm.
Okay. So next I want to talk about your team. Won back all the way in September, at the Mason Rudolph Vanderbilt's tournament.
Hmm.
I was talking with Coach Laura this, obviously she's in her first year at Texas. She, coached for many years at Arizona, and, she won a national championship there. But your team, what was it like for your team? Anything you remember from winning Vanderbilt's tournament in Tennessee? And then, what was it like, this is, Coach Laura's first year, to get the win, the first win, as for her as head coach. What was that like? And just generally, the transition to having her as coach, how has that been?
Yeah. Well, for the girls and I to get that win, I
Yeah.
think it was like a big statement because
Hmm.
we were so close to getting wins a lot my freshman year, other than the Big 12 championships in which we like kind of smoked the field. But no, it was a very special feeling, I'd say, just because, like you said, we had new coaches.
Yeah.
It was like our second event of the fall, I'm pretty sure, and so um, kind of just kicked that door down and kind of showed that we can play, we can win, we know how to do it, and we got that taste. And I think from then on, we were just hungry for even more.
Yeah.
Um, so having their new coaches as well, I think it's been a great change, especially for um, like in regards to like team chemistry and like a relationship with the coaches. I think that was a great change for us. Um, But no, Laura, Braden, and Coach Garrett, they've been so great and supportive and
Yeah.
very positive, even
Hmm.
through like all the downs and through all the ups. Like they're always there. So
Yeah. So yeah, you talked about the change. Your freshman year, you had, different coaches than obviously Laura, Braden, and Garrett. This is their first year. For you and your team, was the change, was it any difficult or was it pretty okay, with the change, given that, Laura's, very good coach, she won a national championship. With the change, any difficult for you and your team, or was, the change pretty okay for your team?
yeah, well, I can't speak for everybody, but for
Yeah,
myself, I don't think it took me too long to get used to having new coaches.
yeah,
Just because like maybe if I was a junior or if I was a senior, then it would be a little different. But having it only been my second year playing college golf, it's like it wasn't that bad for me. Just because it's like, same thing. Same thing when what we do, like when we do team meetings or when we travel. The only difference is like her coaching, or I guess their coaching when we're on the golf course. But I feel like I really like their coaching styles, and so for me, it wasn't that hard to get used to. Um, but that's also just because they're great people. They have great personalities and they're just fun to be around, and so I think that's what made the transition easier as well.
yeah. So you're from Canada. You mentioned you're from the Vancouver area. Just tell me a little about, growing up in Canada, how you got started playing golf, because, Canada, it's probably, cold for like 5 months of the year, at least. So golf maybe for most people probably isn't the first thing, you think of to, get started playing. But, since it's, cold there for playing at least like 4 or 5 months out of the year. But, you do have some good, golfers. Just thinking about some of the professional golfers. You have like, Brooke Henderson's from Canada, Corey
Mhm.
Connors, Nick Taylor, even like Mike Weir, he's won a Masters, and he's from
Right.
Canada. So even though, Canada is known for its cold, you do have some good golf there. So just tell me a little bit about, your start in golf and just how you got, what drew you to play golf.
hmm Um, I think like everybody, my dad got me into golf. Um, he owned a driving range actually.
Okay.
And so golf was basically like right on my doorstep. I could just go out and hit balls whenever I wanted. But I I think I got like a set of plastic golf clubs when I was younger, and I was just whacking a ball around in the house, and then I hit the TV, according to my dad, and then he was like, "All right, we're gonna go to the range now." So started just, hitting balls in the range, not all the time. It was pretty rare that I was out there, I think, when I was growing up. And then when I was probably like 8, I think I wanted to try the drive, chip, and putt. So I did that. Did that for like 2 years, and I was like, you know what? I want to try playing like an actual round, like a competitive round of golf. So my mom registered me for this like small Linkster tour event. Um, it was like just an 18-hole event, and I went out there and I shot like 82, I think, or 83, and I ended up winning. So that was really fun for me because it was my first event and I ended up winning. And so that was probably just like what got me into competing, just because I was already a competitive kid, and for me to get that win and then I guess um get a taste of what it's like actually playing 18 holes and like winning, that's what got me going. And then
Yeah.
yeah, and then I think I won another event later that spring, and then I ended up coming down to the States for the first time and competing. Um and that got me a lot of exposure to colleges and college coaches. And yeah, that's kind of just how my career started. Then since then, I was just in and out of Canada, playing in the States, AJGAs and um, World Junior
Okay. So
Championships, I
you
think.
grew up in Canada, but you would play a lot in the US.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I played more in the US than I did in Canada, just because the field down here was like much stronger. Because in Canada there weren't a lot of strong players growing up. Like now there is. We have a lot of good rising juniors, but the field down here was much better, and also like for exposure to college coaches.
Okay. So you've
Mhm.
answered a lot of my next questions, but my next
Mhm.
question is just going to be, just tell me a little about, so obviously you mentioned AJGA, I'm familiar with, how junior golf and, amateur golf in the US, but I'm not as familiar, with amateur and junior golf in Canada. So just tell me a little about, your experience, playing amateur and junior golf, growing up in Canada.
Yeah, well, my memories of that would just probably be playing in cold and rain,
Okay.
especially like in the fall, all the way up until like spring. Um, which is pretty funny because that's like literally all I could think about. Um, but I can I can probably recall like this one tournament. It was the Canadian Junior Girls, which was really fun. I think it was like the second or third time I played. Oh no. No, sorry. One of the first few times that I played that event, and I shot like maybe 3 or 4 under par, and I was leading the tournament. But that was also like one of the only things I can remember from junior
Mhm.
golf. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So growing up, we've talked about obviously the weather isn't great in Canada. What are some of the things, like during the winter and the cold weather months, outside of the summer? What are some of the things you would do, either golf wise or outside of golf, because obviously in Canada you probably can't, play outside 365 days out of the year. So what are some of the things you would do for golf to keep your game sharp? And then were there any, activities or hobbies you would do outside of, golf growing up in Canada?
Yeah. In the wintertime where I lived, it honestly just rained a lot. It didn't really snow. And so as much as I would have wanted to play in the snow, it never really snowed that much.
Okay.
But practice wise, I would just practice at my dad's driving range. It was covered, so I wouldn't get hit by the rain. But I would still go to the golf course and practice in the cold and splash around in the mud a little bit. But there was always this one tournament in Arizona that I would go to. My dad would go down and we would spend probably like 10 days down there practicing and then competing in the tournament and enjoying some sun. Um, but that's kind of just what my winter consisted of.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So just throughout your career, no, I'm not going to touch on all of them, so it'll take a while, but you've played in a lot of great tournaments, Mizzou America's Open, you played in that as a junior. Alongside the professionals you played in, US Women's Opens, but I wanted to talk about specifically, some Canada tournaments you played in because those are, probably pretty special. First off, I want to talk about 2023, um, Canada Women's Amateur Championship. You got the win there. So, I was noticing, even though this tournament is in Canada, a lot of the great women amateur players, even from the US, go up to Canada and play in this tournament. So first off, just how special is it to win, a tournament like the Canada Women's Amateur in your home country? And then second, why do you think, so many, great amateur players, even from the US go up to Canada, play in this tournament?
Yeah, it was so special getting that win, I think, because I knew that I was one of the rising stars, I guess, or rising players coming out of Canada. And so it was basically like a statement of like, here I am, like I'm winning. I'm going to college and this is like my big win. Um, so it was really special just because my dad was also on the bag and Um, that was probably going to be, I think that was like one of the last times he caddied before I went to college. So it was really special to do in front of him and then also my Golf Canada teammates and my future Texas teammates. I think Farah, Tiffany, and maybe Cindy was there as well. But they kind of got to see like, who I was and that I got to win and that was really fun, really special. Um, and then what was the second part of your question? Sorry.
Uh, yeah, just why do you think so many, like Farah and other, American, amateur golfers, why do you think so many, great, American, golfers, go up to Canada, play in this tournament?
Well, mm, there were questions.
Yeah.
We do, the person that wins this Canadian Women's Amateur gets an exemption into the CPKC Women's Open, which is the
Yep.
LPGA event held in like August usually.
Mhm.
And so I think that's another big factor as to why a lot of players from like across the US come up and play. And it's also like a chance for them to explore, get out of the States and come into Canada and play an ice golf course for a week and then, try and get that win so you can play an LPGA Tour event.
Yeah. Well, you've played in the LPGA tournament, the CPKC Women's Open.
Hmm.
That's what I was going to ask you next. So, what's it like? Results maybe weren't what you had hoped for, but just, overall, how was your experience, getting to play LPGA tournament in your home country?
Yeah. I got to meet a lot of people. I think that was the big thing. Met a lot of people, kind of got to show that, I'm Lauren Kim, kind of the same thing. Like, um, but I got to experience what it's like to be professional for a few days. And it just really like confirms that this is what I want to be doing. And it gives me a lot of motivation, especially when I'm so close to making the cut and playing the weekend and I don't end up doing it. Like it ends up just being like a big lesson for me, and just more motivation to work harder. So,
Yeah. Mhm. So just a few more things I wanted to talk about. I was interested in learning. You're an international student from Canada. So,
mhm.
tell me a little bit, how did the recruiting process work for you, in terms of getting exposure, coaches reaching out to you or, just how did that whole recruiting process work for you? And, what ultimately, drew you to Texas? Being an international student, before you, chose to, attend Texas, did you ever, go see the facilities and see the campus, or did you not do that as an international student?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I went through the same recruiting process that every college athlete went through.
Okay.
Um, just get emails and get a bunch of letters sent to you, and then, calls with the coaches, schedules for official visits. So I I came to Texas. I think it was like the third school I visited.
Okay.
And I just got to see like everything. The coaches gave me a great tour of the facilities on campus and then at the course, and they also took me to a few other golf courses as well. But I just like the fact that, there was warm weather here. I could practice all year long, and the food here is great. And the teammates, like the girls, are also great people. So I knew that I would have a great time out here, and that's kind of ultimately what led me to choose Texas is like the girls, the facilities, and also like once I graduate, I can practice here. So that was another big factor.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I wanted to talk about for you, how has the transition been? Has the transition been, pretty good, or has it been a little difficult at times, going from, growing up in Canada, to, attending school in Texas, being away from, family and friends, I'm sure. Has that been any difficult for you? Because I know for me, if, I told my parents, I wanted to go to school in Canada, they would support me, but they would say, it might be difficult and, things like that. Has the transition for you, been any difficult, or has the transition, been pretty okay?
No, it's been fun actually. I think because I've been coming to the States a lot and being away from family most of the time, like it wasn't that bad. Maybe like the first
Mhm.
few weeks it was a little difficult just because I was navigating a new place with like a whole bunch of new people. But I think I got used to it pretty quickly. Um,
Yeah.
and this place is like basically my second home now, so it's sweet.
Yeah. So two more questions I wanted to ask. Obviously, you have annual and then, the postseason for college golf, is upcoming. So you have some, important, tournaments upcoming. So just, let's talk about college golf just specifically, what are your, obviously, for all teams, hopefully the goal is to, win a national championship. What are some of the things you think you and your team, need to do or work on, just to hopefully, get to the national championship and, play well there.
Yeah, what do we need to do?
Yeah.
I think we've all been working hard. I think we just need to actually realize that, we're good at what we do and we don't need to overthink everything and
Yeah.
just trust in our ability. But, I can say that everybody on this team works their butt off and we're not that
Mhm.
far off from winning a national championship. Like it's right there and we have a few more tournaments to kind of get prepared for that.
Yeah.
Um, but we're at a good place. I definitely can say that. We're at a good place. Everyone's working. Um, Yeah, we just need to trust what we're doing and just continue to do what we've been doing, I think.
Yeah. Finally, I'll end on this question. Just what have been some of your favorite, things or memories, about, college golf?
Oh, probably the places that we get to go to, the people we meet, and the memories I make with my team.
So,
Those
like,
are
my
the
next question will be,
yeah.
is it more fun for you to, get to play Colonial and get to play, I believe Palos Verdes is also, LPGA, getting to play all these, cool golf courses, or is it more, fun for you just making memories and, traveling around with your, team?
Hmm. I guess playing at these courses will lead me to making memories with my team, and so I
Okay.
gotta say both. It's hard just
Okay.
because when we're pro, like yes, we do play some nice courses, but like playing Palos Verdes or Colonial Country Club, like that's pretty special. So yeah.